Yoda Mando Yo Bihari Yono Bolto Giriboro Yono Bolto Giriboro Yashodana Dono Brajajano Ranjan Yashodana Dono Brajajano Ranjan Yomuna Tiro Mono Chari Yomuna Tiro Mono Chari Yoyora Mando Kunjo Bihari Yoyora Mando Kunjo Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Radha Giri Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladev Jaya Yashoda Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaur Haribo 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 Haribo. Hare Krishna, everybody. So, as usual, today we'll first read from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, and after that, we'll discuss the shlokas from Srimad Bhagavata. So, I'm sharing the screen first. I think everyone can see my screen now. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu, we can say.
Hare Krishna. Hit Charan Sharma, Swamiji was going hither and thither. He was getting whatever collection he could and depositing them. And he was always mixing with many persons, going hither and thither. With me, he was very fond that I should do everything as soon as possible. He had a great haste. He used to say, time is going, quick, do it. He would be annoyed with me also, and he would have me do his work first. But I was in the service of Dalmia, and I would tell him, your work has to be secondary for me. But he would say, now you have wasted my 2 days. What is this, Sharmaji? I am coming here. I told you in the morning to do this, and you have not done it even now. But I would reply, I have got no time during the day. Then he would say, you have wasted my complete day. So he was very much pressing me This was his temperament. The binding was reddish, the color of an ardent brick, and was inlaid with gold lettering. Bhakti Vedanta Swami had designed the dust jacket himself, and he had commissioned a young Bengali artist named Salib to execute it. It was a wrap-round picture of entire spiritual and material manifestations. Dominating the front cover was a pink lotus, and within its whole were Radha and Krishna and their pastimes in Vrindavan, along with Lord Chaitanya chanting and dancing with his associates. From Krishna's lotus feet, lotus planet emanated yellow rays of light, and in that effulgence were many spiritual planets appearing like so many suns. Sitting within each planet was a different four-armed form of Narayan, each with his name lettered beneath the planet, Trivikrama, Keshava, Purushottama, and so on. Within an oval at the bottom of the front cover, Mahavishnu was exhaling the material universe. And on the other side, on the inside cover was Bhakti Vedanta Swami's explanation of the cover illustration. When the printing and binding were completed, there were 1100 copies. Bhakti Vedanta Swami would receive 100 copies and the printer would keep the balance. From the sale of the 100 copies, Bhakti Vedanta Swami would continue to pay off his debt to the printer and binder, and then he would receive another supply of books. These would continue until he had finished paying his debt. His plan was to then publish a second volume from the profit of the first and third volume from the profit of the second. Hare Krishna. So today we'll read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23, verse 15. The heading of this canto is the creation of the fourth order, and the heading of the chapter, Maharaja Pitu, going back to home. I'm just sharing the screen for that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudire Srinnatham Shakatha Krishna Srinna Shakatha Punna Savana Kirtanam Vriddhi Yantasto Hi Avadrani Vidhunoti Shurit Shatam Nashto Prayasho Avadreshu Nittam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Bhagavati Nashtiki. Utsarpayam tu tam mudni kramena avesya nishpriha vayum vayu khito vayam tejasi vayu yujat. Utsarpayam tu tam mudni kramena avesya nishpriha vayu khito vayam tejasi yujat. Utsarpayantu tam mudni Ramena Avesho Nishpiho Vayu Shito Kayam Tejasi Oyu Yujat. So Hare Krishna, if anybody wants to recite. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Ucharapayam stutam murdini Kramena Avesha Nispriha Vayum Vayu Shitishu Kayam Shito Kayam Tejashi Ayujutaha.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Utsharpayam stutam murdni Kramena Vesha Nispriha Vayum Vayukshitu Kayam Tejasya Yuyat. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. I am also trying.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please continue.
Utsarpayam stutam mudni kamena vasya nispriyaha vayum vayu situm kayam tejasya yuyat. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else wants to recite? Okay. So in that case, we are going to the synonyms. Can someone please read out the synonyms?
Yes, Prabhu, I can read.
Hare Krishna.
Utsarpayan, thus placing, to, but, tam, the air, murni, on the head, and kramena, gradually, avesha, placing, nispriha, being freed from all material desires, vayum, the air portion of the body, vayu, in the total air covering the universe, sito, in the total covering of earth, kayam, this material body, teja, the fire in the body, Tejasi, in the total fire of the material covering. Ayu Ujat, mixed. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. And the translation. Can anyone please read the translation, please?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Please continue.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. In this way, Prithu Maharaj gradually raised his air of life up to the hole in his skull, whereupon he lost all desire for material existence. Gradually, he merged his air of life with the totality of air, his body with the totality of earth, and the fire within his body with the totality of fire. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Mataji, please continue the purport as well. At least one.
Purport. When the spiritual spark, which is described as 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair, is forced into material existence, that spark is covered by gross and subtle material elements. The material body is composed of 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and 3 subtle elements: mind, intelligence, and ego. When one attains liberation, he is freed from these material coverings. Indeed, success in yoga involves getting free from these material coverings and entering into spiritual existence. Lord Buddha's teachings of nirvana are based on this principle. Lord Buddha instructed his followers to give up these material coverings by means of meditation and yoga. Lord Buddha did not give any information about the soul. But if one follows his instructions strictly, he will ultimately become free from the material coverings and attain nirvana. When a living entity gives up the material coverings, he remains a spirit soul. This spirit soul must enter into the spiritual sky to merge into the Brahman effulgence. Unfortunately, unless the living entity has information of the spiritual world and the Vaikunthas, there is a 99.9% chance of his falling down again into material existence. There is, however, a small chance of being promoted to a spiritual planet from the Brahman effulgence or the Brahmajyoti. This Brahmajyoti is considered by impersonalists to be without variety, and the Buddhists considered it to be void. In either case, whether one accepts the spiritual sky as being without variety or void, there is none of the spiritual bliss which is enjoyed in the spiritual planets, the Vaikunthas or Krishna Loka. In the absence of varieties of enjoyment, the spirit soul gradually feels an attraction to enjoy a life of bliss, and not having any information of Krishna Loka or Vaikuntha Loka, he naturally falls down to material activities in order to enjoy material varieties.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you very nice for reading the book very nicely. Om Gyano Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Gyana Tasmai Sri Guruve Namo Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Padamayam Padatisha Padantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavancha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahavana Raghunatanitam Tam Sajitam Sadvaidam Sabadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahavana Lalita Sri Vijatanitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanto Radha Kanto Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Bindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Paripriye Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Dipashindubhya Evacha Putitanam Pavunibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namo Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Rupadanugami Sri Shubhakoshamine Shada Dvinnashili Shubhagaya Sarvajiva Pipabdve Guru Shiksha Sadacharo Palokaya Namaste Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadesho Tarini Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratise Namo Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pongum Langayate Girim Yakti Pathamaham Vande Paramananda Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna everybody. Welcome to you all in this morning class of Srimad Bhagavatam. Although I am not qualified and I am doing this service as I have been instructed to undertake this service, and it is an opportunity for me to purify myself. So I beg you all for your mercy to please bless me that I can properly glorify the Supreme Lord and also purify myself. Now in this present, now a brief background of the topics. In this present chapter, we continue to hear about Prithu Maharaj, who is a Shaptavesh avatar of the Lord, a great king, a highly elevated devotee of the Lord, and a great personality. He is preparing himself after finishing his duty as a king of the whole earth planet. He is preparing himself to go back to his eternal home, back to God. And in this verse, we find that Prithu Maharaj is giving up his life here of his material body by the yogic process. And his success in the yogic practice is being described here. And Srila Prabhupada has explained in the previous verse that the ultimate aim of the yoga practice is to enable one to give up his body according to his own free will. Actually, we do not know the time of our death, and we do not get a chance to we do not get a choice to get it in a normal way. But the yogis try to control it, and they try to control that life here in such a way that they can live life here can live the body according to their desire. And that is the perfection of the yoga practice. And a perfect yogi can select his time of death and destination after death. As I've told in the previous chapter, we have seen in the previous chapter that the ultimate aim of yoga practice is to give up the body according to his own will, and that is selecting the time and when he will go, what planet he will go. All these things is there. A perfect yogi is one who has attained this ultimate summit of yoga practice, and he is capable of doing and controlling certain things in his body. For example, he can live in this body as long as he likes, or as long as he is not completely perfect, and he can leave the body to go anywhere within or outside the universe. But whenever a yogi by yoga practice wants to go to another planet, this is not a very perfect idea in the sense, because anywhere, any other planets in the material world has also that is not permanent place like the Vaikuntha and other planets, which are permanent. And whenever we go back to Vaikuntha, we do not have to come back again. But if a yogi by yogic practice wants to go to a higher planet for enjoyment, then it is not a good idea, and he is imperfect in his goal. So intelligent yogi do not waste their time in this material world at all. And And when the yogi leave their bodies, they go to the Vaikuntha planets. That is the perfection of yoga practice. And in fact, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 16, and it is mentioned that it is futile because of Abrahma. The sloka is like that: is Abrahma bhavanaloko punaravartino arjuna mamupetu kauntya punarjanmana vidyate. So when we go to any higher planet, we have to come back again, and that is mentioned in chapter 6 also, in 41 and subsequent verses. What happens to a yogi who could not complete it, who could not complete perfection in a yoga practice? Now the question arises: so what the yogi does to his material body, as Prabhupada has told, the purpose of a yogi is to separate the spiritual part from the body and leave the body. That is what yogi tries to do. Now, what we have, the question now arises: why we have got a material body in the first place? If we try, before that, let us try about what is the composition of our body. If we try to critically analyze the components of our living bodies, of all our living bodies, we find that a body has three components: the gross body, the subtle body, and the spiritual spark, which is above these two. And this gross body and subtle body consist of 24 elements or components. They may be explained in this way. The gross body first is earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And in Bhagavad Gita 7.4, it is there. It is the same thing is mentioned: Bhumi, Apo, Analo, Vayu, Kham. Bhumi means earth, and Apo means water, and Analo is fire, and air is Vayu, and Kham is ether. So these are the 5 great elements, or these are called Mahabhuta. And then there are 3 subtle elements. They are ego, intelligence, and the mind. These are the 3 components. And then there are 5 knowledge acquiring senses we have got: the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin. And these 5 knowledge acquiring senses have got sense objects. And for the eyes, they related to that form of we can see the forms of the things. So in some of the ears we can hear, and by the nose we can smell, and by the tongue we can taste, and by the skin we can touch, feeling of touch. And then there are 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and these are working senses. They are eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin. No, sorry, these are, I told the knowledge acquiring senses, I repeated it. 5 working senses are voice, hands, legs, anus, and the genitals. Then the above senses, there is, and as I've told, so in together, 5 knowledge acquiring senses and 5 sense objects, 10, 5 working senses, 15, and 3 gross elements, that is 15 plus 3, 18, and then 5, there is 5 sense objects. So there's 23, and what remains is the unmanifested forms, or the that is called unmanifested of the 3 modes of material nature. So in total, in together, there are 24 elements that constitute a material body. But above everything is the soul, the Atma is there. So, and the desire, hatred, happiness, distress, and the aggregate of the life symptoms, all these are considered in summary the field of activities and the interaction. It is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse 6 and 7, that what is Ketro Go, places, it is explained that in this way, the body is a Kshetra, and the owner is the Kshetrogya, or the owner is the knower of the body. And the real nature of the soul and its activities is explained in the, now the activities of the soul that activates the body. And as we all know, without the presence of the soul, the body has no meaning. And there is no, and if there is no soul, that's a dead body. And it has no change or anything. It doesn't, it's just like a non-living material body. And so it is the soul that activates the body, and it activates consciousness. In the presence of the soul, the activities of the body start. And as soon as one is born, the body grows because of the soul, and all activities of the body takes place because of the soul. And that is why Prabhupada was telling that the purpose of the yoga system is to control, is to get out of the material body by the soul. So there is a difference of the material and spiritual part of the body. The spiritual part of the body is the most important thing, and it's in the purport it is also mentioned that it is 10,000 parts of the tip of a hair. In other words, it is mentioned in Shetaswara Upanishad also, Balagra Shotabhavasho Shatodha Shopit Kalpshit Cho Bhago Jivo Sho Biggeyo Sho Shocham Toya Kalpote. When the upper point of the hair is divided into 100 parts, and again each such part is further divided into 100 parts, and each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. In other words, although it is very small, but it has the most important influence on the body. And the consciousness of the body comes from the soul, and therefore due to the material, it is not due to material combination that our body is working. It is due to the influence of the soul. It is working now, and this size is so small that it cannot be viewed, and nor it is even it is mentioned in 23 and the second chapter that it cannot be cut by any weapons. It cannot be burned by fire. It cannot be wet by water, and the air cannot dry it. So these are the features of the atomic soul, and this soul is, as Prabhupada has mentioned about that, it is floating on 5 kinds of air, called prano, apano, bano, somano, and udano, and it is situated within the heart, and it is in this way it spreads its influence throughout the whole body, and the soul is purified. When the soul is purified from the 5 kinds of material air, its spiritual influence is exhibited. Otherwise, what happens when the spirit soul remains within the body, within the material body, we think that under the influence of the material influence, we consider that we are the material body, but which is not the real situation. And the first lesson of spirituality is that we know that our identity is the spirit soul and not this material body. Now, one question we will discuss first: why we have got a material body in the first place? The material body is a kind of disguise that Krishna or the Supreme Person gives us when we want to forget our real identity. Our original consciousness is Krishna consciousness, and because we are part and parcel of Krishna, that means we are part and parcel of the Krishna. So when the consciousness is misguided, and anyone who is put into material, and that consciousness is disrupted or misguided when it is put into material atmosphere, which pollutes our original consciousness, and when we think that it is a product of material element. Thus, we lose the real remembrance of the original position, as that we are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And all the activities of the soul what we try to do is based on a false basis. That means we consider it the material body and we act on that platform. But whenever, although we are in a material condition under the false conception, the bodily concept, but fortunately the forgetfulness can be revived. It can be revived. And how it is revived? Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita how to recover one's normal consciousness to the practice of Krishna consciousness. And let me explain a bit more on that. In the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 6:1657, Prabhupada has quoted the Vaishnava poet Jagadananda Pandit. And in the Prema Vivarta, he has written that Krishna Bohirmukh Hoya Bhogo Vancha Kore Nikotastha Mayatare Japotiyana. Actually, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. When a living entity like us, who are in this material world, forgetting his constitutional position, wants to imitate him, his conditional life begins, and we becomes conditioned. And the conception of the Supreme Person and the living entity are not equal in quality, but are equal in quality, but not in quantity. But when we think that the conception, the living entity thinks that they are equal to the Lord, in other words, the quality and the quantity is same, that is the beginning of conditioned life. Because we want to enjoy like the Supreme Lord, which is not our constitutional position. We think that in this way, we get conditioned life. But when we are in this material world, we are given a chance to satisfy the false desire to lord over the material nature. And this is the beginning of the downfall. And as long as we're in the material atmosphere, we have a subtle vehicle that is more in the form of the mind. And this mind is situated in a body, and which is the stockpile of all kinds of our material desire. And such desire become manifested in bodily forms. The mind is actually the storehouse of our past desires. And in the present body, what we do in the present body is a continuation from the past desire. And similarly, whatever we desire in the present body, it will express our position in the future body. In this way, the mind is the source of different kinds of bodies. That means because of our desire and the desire to get different, to enjoy, we get a different body. We get a different body as is provided by the nature. If the mind is purified, when we purify the mind by Krishna consciousness, we will naturally in the future get a body that is spiritual and full of Krishna consciousness. And such a body is our original form. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told, Jivero Swarup Hoy Krishna Nitya. It is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 20 and 108. That means every living entity is constitutionally an eternal servant of Krishna. And if one person has surrendered to Krishna and engages in the devotional service of the Lord, he is to be considered a liberated soul. Even in this life, although we are in the material condition, we can be free from we can be liberated from this condition. And this is confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Ihayasya hare dashi karmana manasa gira nikilasya apiyavasthatu jivan mukta sauchate. If one engages in the transcendental service of the Lord in the body, mind, and words, he is considered liberated in all conditions of material existence. And in fact, Krishna consciousness movement, our Krishna conscious movement is based on this very principle. Srila Prabhupada has told that we must teach people to absorb themselves always in the service of the Lord, and because that is our or their, whatever, anyone's natural position. One who is always serving the Lord is to be considered already liberated. And it is also in Bhagavad Gita also there is a mention of that Arjuna has asked Sri Krishna in chapter 14 that what is the way, because as we have told, three modes of material nature is because of the three modes of material nature, we act in this material world. Arjuna has asked Sri Krishna, what is the way we can get rid of the three modes of material nature? And Lord Sri Krishna has told in Arjuna in chapter 14, verse 26, Mam choyo vabhicharena bhakti yogena sevote shagunan samiti tuitan brahmo bhaya kalpate. One who is always engaged in the spiritual activities of unalloyed devotional service at once transcends the mode of material nature and is elevated to spiritual platform. The devotees is therefore, those who are pure devotees are therefore free, therefore above the three modes of material nature, and is even transcendental to the Brahmana platform. In the material world, a Brahman it may be infected by other two modes. That means, although Brahmana is considered as in mode of goodness, but it is still mixed with other two modes, passion and ignorance. That means called Rajoguna or Tamoguna. But a pure devotee who is free from all material desires, experienced on the material platform, desires experienced although in the material platform, is free from the philosophical speculation and other fruitive activity, and always above the material conditioning, and is considered to be liberated. And in fact, in Bhagavad Gita second chapter, 70, verse 70, it is mentioned that although incessant flow of desires comes to the mind, but a pure devotee is free from all that. Apuramanam achala pratishtam samudramapo pravishyanti yadvat tadvat kama yam pravishyanti sarve sashanti mapnoti no kamakam. He is not affected by the desire. So one who is free from that desire, and although desires in the material world is very incessantly comes, when he is free from that, he is considered a liberated soul. And in fact, there are two kinds of living entities, Nitya Siddha and Nitya Baddha. Nitya Siddha means they never fall a victim of Maya. Nitya Siddha, normally, Nitya Siddha, even though they are, as we have mentioned, although they are in the material world, they are never victimized by Maya. And the Nitya Siddhas are those who are, their constitutional, they act according to their constitutional position. Because God is eternal, and the living entity is part and parcel are also eternal. So they act on the basis of their soul, not on the bodily platform. And whenever, although, as we have told, that although we are in a material level, if we are Krishna conscious, if we make ourselves Krishna conscious by surrendering into the Supreme Lord, the Lord is assured that in Bhagavad Gita, that whenever we surrender to the Lord and totally surrender and totally take shelter of the Lord, then we become free from all these material desires. And the process of surrender is also described in that is in chapter 15. It is there that it is told that how one can surrender into the Supreme Lord, and it is mentioned. It is 15.5. It is there that nirmana moho jita sanga dosha adhatma nitya vinivritto kama dandoi vimukta sukha dukkha sangha gachanti yamura padam payantat. Those who are free from false prestige, means the nirmana moho, who has no man or no false prestige, and moho means his illusion, and jita sanga dosha means who is free from false association, and adhatma nitya, who understands the eternity of his soul, and vinivritto, who are done with material lust and who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, dandoid vimukta, who are free from distress and dualities of happiness and distress, and who are unbewildered Amura, that who are not bewildered. But Mura, those who are Amura here, it is told, who are not bewildered, know how to surrender to the Lord and attain the eternal kingdom of the Lord. So surrendering process is very nicely explained in this verse. And the first condition is that he should not be deluded by the pride, because in this material world, that is the biggest problem for us. We consider ourselves very important, and if anyone tries to say anything which we consider against our dignity, that the false ego, then our position, we feel indignified, and that is the obstacle for surrender to the Lord. Unless we surrender to the Lord, we cannot be free from this, free from the duality and from the dualities, as well as from the illusion of the material world. Now, one question arises that in the purport, Prabhupada has told that in the first part, that the nirvana or the Buddhist teachings and the other things, they try to control the spiritual part and material body from spiritual part. But there is a difference between us and them. As we have told, that for the devotees do not bother for this spirit, Ashtanga yoga or yoga. We do not follow that practice, what they do, because they are trying to control the life air, and in this way they are trying to delete. They are trying to leave their body, material body. The soul is trying, and controlling the soul, they are trying to get rid of the material body. But we do not do that, and we rely on the Supreme Lord. And when we surrender to the Supreme Lord, the Lord takes care of all our things. So we do not follow what they are saying. And another thing is that because we believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in our activities, all our activities are circled around the Supreme Lord, and we hear from other devotees about the activities of the Lord, and so we participate in activities that can please the Lord, and or in our devotional service, and we chant the name of the Lord, and in this way we always remain engaged and take all the bliss the Lord has. In fact, the Lord has got three specific, although Supreme Lord Krishna has got innumerable qualities and energy, or rather potencies, it can be grossly divided into, mainly divided into three. That is called internal potency of the Lord, external potency of the Lord, and the marginal potency of the Lord. As a human being, we are in the marginal potency of the Lord, but we know that if we are free from the material conceptions, then our nature is same as the equality as the Lord. So when we can, as a part and parcel of the Lord, we want to be happy, and because the Lord is the supreme enjoyer, by our activities we try to please the Lord, as is given in 529, that he is the supreme enjoyer. So we try to serve the Lord in that way, and thus we become happy in that way. We do not try to leave our body in a specific time, as the yogis are trying to do, as in this case, as we see that Pithumarga was trying to do, because that was possible in their days. But in the present day, it is not possible to pursue this and become successful. And because they do not have any information about the other spiritual sky, and they try to merge in the Brahman effulgence, and they cannot. There is a chance of their falling down. But we know that there is a spiritual world, and that is the place of that is our original place of residence. So we want to go there. We want to serve the Lord in this way by serving the Lord and remain blissful. And at the end of this life, when we are above this material concept, when we become free from all material desires, and automatically we are in the Brahma Bhuta platform. And in the Brahma Bhuta platform, as we have seen, that we automatically goes to without any duality, and without duality, we can become at the same quality as the Lord. And in this way, we can go back to Godhead. When we leave the body, it becomes automatic. It is not that we have to make a special effort for that. But if by serving the Lord, when we surrender to the Lord fully, and our desires ceases, we are elevated to the Brahma Buddha platform. And in this way, we go back to Godhead, and or the Vaikuntha Loka or Krishna Loka, whatever the devotees desire to do, and depending upon whatever for whatever type of position they are accepting as a devotee, and Shanta and the Dasho Shokko, and in this way we can go back to the Godhead. And so naturally, we do not have to make special endeavor like the yogis, but we can be assured of the going back to the spiritual planet when we surrender to the Lord and pursue spiritual activities prescribed by our spiritual, following the instruction of the spiritual master, and the other in association with the devotees, so that we don't fall down in the material level by our material desires. And in this way, we become successful to go back to Godhead. So with that, I'm concluding. So if anybody has got any question or any opinion, please express it so that we can. And if I have any mistake, please excuse me, and please point out. I'll be happy to learn from you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Yeah, the whole Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam is already explained. And mainly, how this Nitya Mukta and Nitya Bhakta is explained so nicely to make it easily understand the difference between the followers of Lord Buddha and the followers of Krishna consciousness. It's a completely different understanding. They understand up to the yoga process by which they can connect through 5 years in the body and living those and merging into the Brahmajyoti. But devotees of the Lord or true Krishna conscious, we are above that, which we attain in the Bhagavan picture of the Lord. So we are above the stage of Brahmajyoti stage of understanding, and Krishna conscious the understanding of Bhagavan feature of the Lord. So it's very, very elevated one and very easy, as Srila Prabhupada has given us the so simple process. Don't need to go for an extraneous process of yoga, which takes long time, lot of efforts. But in Krishna consciousness, simply surrender to the Lord, and that everything falls in place. A very simple process which doesn't affect our daily life. Just to follow the instruction of the spiritual master, and that's it. And everything will be automatically set. Because as you mentioned about the consciousness, the main thing, the soul is to be connected with the Supreme Soul. That connection is very easily made with Krishna consciousness. You don't need to follow such an extraneous process of Ashtanga Yoga. It's so difficult, and not even that, everybody cannot perform this. It's a very special or very highly skilled process.
Yeah.
So chances are very, very less. But whereas in Krishna consciousness is very easy. Each and every one of the interested person in this world can be freed by following a very simple process of chanting the holy name. Surrender to Krishna and everything will be very easy. No need to go. And you can maintain your own life, whatever you are doing. Only you just put Krishna in between and everything will be sorted out. And then you don't need to wait for the time to go. Krishna will select the time and will be living this material world. So that's the vast difference of understanding, and that is how Krishna consciousness gives us very simple, suitable process. Because this Rupa Goswami mentioned, as per your reference, the ultimate goal is to be in deep absorbance of Krishna. So that is the ultimate goal. So once we get it through this simple process, everything Krishna will take care of us. That's why we should understand our position. Jivere Swarupai Krishna Nityadas. If we understand that philosophy, everything is very, very easy. Thank you so much for explaining such a good, good way of understanding how we live our life and how we, LEAV, live our life. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for explaining it very nicely. Yes, that is the thing. The problem is that in this material, when you say a simple thing, people do not take it. That is the problem. Although it is very simple, people think that by doing yoga practice and other, that is more attractive to them. And they go there and fails in the process because they ultimately fail to reach the goal.
Yeah.
In a very complicated process, when it is simple, as our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told, simply chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and surrendering to the Lord, we can go back to Godhead, and that will automatically purify our existence, and our desire will automatically cease when we remain connected with the Lord. Because Lord, as in Bhagavad Gita also 10.20, Dadami Buddhi Yoga, He gives us the intelligence also to go back to Godhead when we remain engaged with the Lord and we surrender fully to the Lord. But most of the people do not follow that. I mean, I'm talking of the external people.
Yeah, in the normal day-to-day life, so if you get a cheaper thing, people think that it may not be a good thing. But when you see the price, say if you buy a thing of $5 having the same feature, which is having $1,500, people think that $1,500 is maybe very better than the $5 one. But if you analyze, the feature is almost equal. So that understanding keeps us in the false ego, and that doesn't allow us to interact with the simple way of life rather than making it more difficult. And that is what pulls us back to understand simple way of this movement, Prabhupada's movement, that is ISKCON movement. Surrender unto Krishna, everything will be sorted out. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for a nice detailed explanation of the verse and also the various elements. You very nicely explained how the living entity is composed of all those various elements. So thank you for the explanation. So I just was thinking, so yeah, in terms of this processes as well, the process of dhyana yoga, that meditation, as you said, it's very it's a difficult process, especially in this age. So I just wanted to understand, like, so Prithu Maharaj was a great devotee of the Lord Shakti Abhay Shavtar. So, like, how can we understand that, like, why he must have practiced this dhyana yoga, like, to attain the Supreme Lord? So, like, why he must have practiced this process of dhyana yoga? That's one question. And also, I was just wondering, whether these different processes are for attaining different aspects of the Lord. For example, somebody wants to attain the Brahman aspect. So for that person, is it that he has to practice Dhyana Yoga rather than Bhakti Yoga? And some person who wants to attain the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan, then for him, definitely, for him or her, definitely the Bhakti Yoga process is more suitable. Is it something like that? So just wanted to understand that.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji, for the very nice question. And I'm trying to explain to the extent I know, to the extent my knowledge. The first is the Prithu Maharaj was the story of Prithu Maharaj, or the things that happened in Shatya Yuga. And at that time, the taking Vanaprastha was part of the Varnashrama Dharma. But nowadays we do not follow it. That is the first thing. And at that time, while discussing, we have told that one can give up the life based on the time. He can select the time. Since Prithu Maharaj has been to the forest, and he had an opportunity of doing that. But in the present way of life, in the present day of life, we do not. Everybody has not to take the sannyasa, and in Kali Yuga, sannyasa is also not also prohibited only in preaching things. Sannyasa order is taken for preaching, but it is in, I think it is in Chaitanya Charitamrita in the 17th chapter. It is mentioned that that sannyasa, what is that verse? I'm trying to remember. That is Ashramedam Gavalambam, Ashramedam Gavalambam, Sannyasa Palapotrikam, Devorena Sutotpatin, Kalo Pancham Vivarjay. So Kalo Pancham Vivarjay. So it is not done in this present age, Prabhuji. And it was in Shatya Yuga, it was done because the lifespan was long. So they used to do that, and they were able to leave their body depending, and they were able to select the time. So that is why, and also because the practice was like that, Prithu Maharaj has undertaken it. But in this present, situation, it is very difficult to. Most of the people do not go to Vanaprastha portion of life. Chaturvarna of the Vanaprastha order is not taken mostly. That is one thing. And the other thing you have told about the three features of the Lord, that is Brahma and Paramatma and the Bhagavan. Prabhupada has told one who has attained the Bhagavan form, he has understood. These are the different conceptions of different stages of understanding. So one who has understood Bhagavan, he has automatically understood the other two features as well, that is Brahman feature of the Lord, and also Paramatma feature of the Lord. A person who has known the Bhagavan, there is ultimate knowledge. So it is not necessary what you have told, that one who has to do only limited knowledge, he will only know in a limited way if he pursue to this dhyana, ashtanga. He wants a knowledge form, pursue the knowledge as a Gyani. He wants to do that and then surrenders to the Lord. But for a devotee like us who has got all the three features is automatically revealed to him, because that is the highest knowledge. And so one has to cross it, like one going to give an example, it can be said that one who has passed the master degree, he has automatically covered his secondary education as well as the graduation level. So in this way, he has known it. One who is just, there is no point of just limitedly knowing the Lord. Of course, someone is still doing that, as we know, the Mayavadis and others, they want to still merge with the Lord, merge in the effulgence of the Lord. So they pursue this Brahmajyoti, they want to merge, and they pursue this Gana Mr. Bhakti, like that. Hare Krishna Prabhu, I'm not sure whether I've been able to tell you.
No, thank you. No, thank you, Prabhu, that clarified it. Thank you very much.
Anybody else has any other comments? So if there is no other No one to make any comments. So thank you everybody for participating. Pancha, we are closing the session. Last now. Pancha kalpadurubhasya.
Patita Sindhu eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo
Namo Namaha.
Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. His grace Abhay Charan Prabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
All glories to assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.